Tonight is the 19th of September, and this is the 61st time we are speaking on the Majjhima Nikaya Suttas. Tonight we come to Sutta 146, Nandakovada Sutta, advice from Nandaka. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then Mahapajapati to Gotami, together with 500 nuns, went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to the Blessed One, she stood at one side and said to him, "Venerable Sir, let the Blessed One advise the nuns. Let the Blessed One instruct the nuns. Let the Blessed One give the nuns a talk on the Dhamma." On that occasion, the elder monks were taking turns in advising the nuns. But the Venerable Nandaka did not want to advise them when his turn came. Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda. "Ananda, whose turn is it today to advise the nuns?" "Venerable Sir, it is the Venerable Nandaka's turn to advise the nuns, but he does not want to advise them, even though it is his turn." Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Nandaka. "Advise the nuns, Nandaka. Instruct the nuns, Nandaka. Give the nuns a talk on the Dhamma, Brahmana." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the Venerable Nandaka replied. Stop here for a moment. The Buddha instructed that the nuns once in 2 weeks should be taught the Dhamma by senior monks. And generally senior monks means those with 20 vasa, 20 years higher ordination or more. What later came to be called Mahathera. But during the Buddha's time, any monk who was ordained 10 years and above was called Thera or Thero, and they did not have the word Mahathera. Later, they coined the word Mahathera for monks with 20 years ordination and more. And then this Venerable Nandaka here is said that he did not want to teach the nuns. According to the commentary, the commentary says that in the past Nandaka was a king, and the nuns in the past were his concubines. So he was afraid that those monks with psychic power would know and then would think that he is attached to them, wants to associate with them. I don't think that's very reasonable, because if he over-associates with them, then they might think so, but he is just like any other senior monk, just taking his turn. However, there are some arahants who are not inclined to action, not inclined to do this or do that. They like to just meditate. So possibly he's one of those. You see, at the end of the sentence, the Buddha said, "Give the nuns a talk on the Dhamma, Brahmana." This Brahmana could mean Brahmin. Either this Venerable Nandaka was of the Brahmin caste, or the Buddha could mean Brahmana, the meaning is religious man. So it could be either one. Then in the morning, the Venerable Nandaka dressed and, taking his bowl and outer robe, went into Savatthi for alms. When he had wandered for alms in Savatthi and had returned from his alms round, after his meal, he went with a companion to the Rajaka park. The nun saw the Venerable Nandaka coming in the distance and prepared a seat and set up water for the feet. The Venerable Nandaka sat down on the seat made ready and washed his feet. The nuns paid homage to him and sat down at one side. When they were seated, the Venerable Nandaka told the nuns, "Sisters, this talk will be in the form of questions. When you understand, you should say, 'We understand.' When you do not understand, you should say, 'We do not understand.' When you are doubtful or perplexed, you should ask me, 'How is this, Venerable Sir? What is the meaning of this?' And they said, 'Venerable Sir, we are satisfied and pleased with Master Nandaka for inviting us in this way.'" Stop here for a moment. So it looks from here that the nuns were staying in this nunnery in Rajaka Park. That's why this Venerable Nandaka went there. Then Venerable Nandaka comments his talk. He said, "Sisters, what do you think? Is the I permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." "Sisters, what do you think? Is the ear permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." "Sisters, what do you think? Is the nose permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." "Sisters, what do you think? Is the tongue permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." "Sisters, what do you think? Is the body permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." "Sisters, what do you think? Is the mind permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." "Why is that?" "Because, Venerable Sir, we have already seen this well as it actually is, with proper wisdom thus. These 6 internal bases are impermanent." Good sisters. So it is with a noble disciple who sees this as it actually is, with proper wisdom. Sisters, what do you think? Are forms permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Sisters, what do you think? Are sounds permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. So similarly, he asks concerning odors, flavors, tangibles, mind objects. And they say, no, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, we have already seen this well, as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. These 6 external bases are impermanent. Good sisters. So it is with a noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. Sisters, what do you think? Is I consciousness permanent or impermanent? And they say impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Similarly, he asks concerning ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. Is mind consciousness permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, we have already seen this well as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. These 6 classes of consciousness are impermanent. Good sisters. So it is with a noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. Stop there for a moment. So here, Venerable Nandaka is trying to make them see that the 6 internal sense bases are impermanent, suffering and not fit to be clung to as I and mine. And similarly, the 6 external bases. The 6 external bases, we remember, are the baits of Mara, trying to hook us with beautiful forms, nice sounds, nice odors, taste, touch and thoughts. And then the third set is the 6 classes of consciousness. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, etc. These 6 consciousness, the 6 sense bases, make up the whole world. The first 5, 6 senses, conjure up the external world. The 6th sense, the mind, conjures up the internal world. So everything in existence is in the 6 bases, 6 sense bases. Sisters, suppose an oil lamp is burning. Its oil is impermanent and subject to change. Its wick is impermanent and subject to change. Its flame is impermanent and subject to change. And its radiance is impermanent and subject to change. Now, would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? While this oil lamp is burning, its oil, wick and flame are impermanent and subject to change, but its radiance is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, while that oil lamp is burning, its oil, wick and flame are impermanent and subject to change, so its radiance must be impermanent and subject to change. So too, sisters, would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? These 6 internal bases are impermanent and subject to change. But the pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant feeling that one experiences in dependence upon the 6 internal bases is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because each feeling arises in dependence upon its corresponding condition. And with the cessation of its corresponding condition, the feeling ceases. Good sisters. So it is with a noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. Stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Nandaka starts to give some similes to show more clearly the Dhamma. So this oil lamp is burning and the different components are the oil, the wick, the flame, the radiance are all impermanent. So this radiance, which is the brightness, you cannot expect it to be permanent because it's the radiance depends on all these other factors. Depends on the oil, which is impermanent, depends on the wick, which is impermanent, depends on the flame, which is impermanent. So how can the radiance be permanent when the conditions for it, namely the oil, the wick, the flame, are impermanent? So since it depends on certain conditions which are impermanent, so you can say it's even more impermanent. So similarly, the feeling arises through contact at the 6 internal bases. When the eye contacts form, then a feeling arises. And when ear contacts sound, then another type of feeling arises. So this feeling arises due to contact at the 6 internal sense bases. But the 6 internal sense bases are impermanent. So feeling cannot be permanent. Why we talk about feeling? Because people tend to cling to feeling. When you have a pleasant feeling, you want to experience it again and again. And this craving is the cause for rebirth. This craving for good feeling is cause for the round of samsara. Sisters, suppose a great tree is standing possessed of hard wood. Its root is impermanent and subject to change. Its trunk is impermanent and subject to change. Its branches and foliage are impermanent and subject to change. And its shadow is impermanent and subject to change. Now would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? The root, trunk, branches and foliage of this great tree, standing possessed of hard wood, are impermanent and subject to change. But its shadow is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, the root, trunk, branches and foliage of this great tree, standing possessed of hard wood, are impermanent and subject to change. So its shadow must be impermanent and subject to change. So too, sisters, would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? These 6 external bases are impermanent and subject to change. But the pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant feeling that one experiences in dependence upon the 6 external bases is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because each feeling arises in dependence upon its corresponding condition, and with the cessation of its corresponding condition, the feeling ceases. Good sisters. So it is with the noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. So here, Rabbi Nandaka is trying to show that feeling also arises dependent on the 6 external bases. That means forms contacting the eye, sounds contacting the ear, odors contacting the nose, taste contacting the tongue, tangibles contacting the body, and thoughts contacting the mind. So these 6 external bases are impermanent, and so the feeling that arises dependent on these 6 external bases are impermanent, or even more impermanent. Sisters, suppose a skilled butcher or his apprentice were to kill a cow and carve it up with a sharp butcher's knife, without damaging the inner mass of flesh and without damaging the outer hide. He would cut, sever and carve away the inner tendons, sinews and ligaments with the sharp butcher's knife. Then, having cut, severed and carved all this away, he would remove the outer hide and cover the cow again with that same hide. Would he be speaking rightly if he were to say, this cow is joined to this hide just as it was before? No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because if that skilled butcher or his apprentice were to kill a cow and cut, sever and carve away all that away, even though he covers the cow again with that same hide and says, this cow is joined to this hide just as it was before, that cow would still be disjoined from that hide. Sisters, I have given this simile in order to convey a meaning. This is the meaning. The inner mass of flesh is a term for the 6 internal bases. The outer hide is a term for the 6 external bases. The inner tendons, sinews and ligaments is a term for delight and lust. The sharp butcher's knife is a term for noble wisdom. The noble wisdom that cuts, severs and carves away the inner defilements, fetters and bonds. Stop here for a moment. So here you can see this butcher, he cuts away the outer hide and then puts it back again, but it's no more joined to the inner flesh as before, because the connecting inner tendons, sinews and ligaments have all been cut away. So these inner tendons, sinews and ligaments are represented by the inner defilements, fetters and bonds that cause the attachment of our inner bases to the external sense bases. So here he's saying that one who has severed, cut away the delight and lust for the 6 external sense bases is no more attached to them like before. An ordinary person is attached to the 6 external bases, strongly attached because of the inner defilements, fetters and bonds. But the Arahant has cut away this attachment, the his defilements, fetters and bonds, so that the external sense bases are no more attached to the internal sense bases like before. This is quite a striking simile. Sisters, there are these 7 enlightenment factors, through the development and cultivation of which a monk, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. What are the 7? Here, sisters, a monk develops the mindfulness enlightenment factor or recollection enlightenment factor, which is supported by seclusion, dispassion and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. He develops the investigation of Dhamma enlightenment factor, the energy enlightenment factor, the delight enlightenment factor, the tranquility enlightenment factor, the concentration enlightenment factor, the equanimity enlightenment factor, which are supported by seclusion, dispassion and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. These are the 7 enlightenment factors, through the development and cultivation of which a monk, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. When the Venerable Nandaka had advised the nuns thus, he dismissed them, saying, "Go, sisters, it is time." Then the nuns, having delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Nandaka's words, rose from their seats, and after paying homage to the Venerable Nandaka, departed, keeping him on their right. They went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, stood at one side. The Blessed One told them, "Go, sisters, it is time." Then the nuns paid homage to the Blessed One and departed, keeping him on their right. Stop here for a moment. Venerable Nandaka at the end told them that they have to cultivate the 7 bojangas, the 7 enlightenment factors, which leads to liberation. Without the 7 enlightenment factors, one cannot become liberated. So when he finished his talk, he said, "Go, sisters, it is time." They paid respect to him. Then they went to pay respect to the Buddha. You notice Buddha doesn't talk much with these nuns. He just says, "Go, sisters, it is time." So they pay homage to him again and they depart. We notice in the suttas and the Vinaya, the Buddha has very little words to talk to anyone except connecting in connection with the Dhamma. He does not waste time talking, "How are you? How's your health?" and all these things. He doesn't. And he generally only talks to the non-arahants. Those who have not attained arahanthood, generally he does not talk much to them. And these arahant nuns, they come to him even in the middle of the night. Those with psychic power, I remember Upalavana, the one with the greatest psychic power. Sometimes in the middle of the night, she flies in the air, stands in the air, wants to come and talk to the Buddha. Sometimes when he sees that the Buddha is occupied with devas or what, she'll wait. If there's no devas keeping the Buddha busy, then she'll come down and talk to the Buddha. So soon after they had left, the Blessed One addressed the monks. "Monks, just as on the Uposatha day of the 14th, people are not doubtful or perplexed as to whether the moon is incomplete or full. Since then the moon is clearly incomplete, so too those nuns are satisfied with Nandaka's teaching of the Dhamma, but their intention has not yet been fulfilled." Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Nandaka. "Well then, Nandaka, tomorrow too you should advise those nuns in exactly the same way." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the Venerable Nandaka replied. Then the next morning the Venerable Nandaka dressed. Then as before, after Pindapata and all that, he went to teach the nuns and in exactly the same way. Then the nuns paid homage to him. After that they went to pay homage to the Buddha. Then the nuns paid homage to the Blessed One and departed, keeping him on their right. Soon after they had left, the Blessed One addressed the monks. "Monks, just as on the Uposatha day of the 15th, People are not doubtful or perplexed as to whether the moon is incomplete or full. Since then, the moon is clearly full. So too, those nuns are satisfied with Nandaka's teaching of the Dhamma, and their intention has been fulfilled. Monks, even the least advanced of those 500 nuns, is a stream enterer, no longer subject to perdition, bound for deliverance, headed for enlightenment. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. It's the end of the sutta. So here you see Venerable Nandaka. First he talks about the 6 internal sense bases, that they are impermanent, suffering and not fit to be regarded as I and mine. Then the 6 external sense bases, and the consciousnesses that correspond to the 6 bases. And then after that he gives these similes which are very striking to make them see that the feeling that we cling to is dependent on other conditions which are impermanent. That being so, the feeling itself is even more impermanent. And then we have to cut the delight and lust for the 6 external sense bases. Once we cut off the delight and lust for the 6 external sense bases, then we are no more attached to them as before, and become liberated from them. So the first time they heard it, they kind of half understood. So the Buddha said to repeat the teaching, and repeated the same teaching, and it sunk in. So all of them attain Aryahood, different levels depending on their samadhi. So this shows that listening to the Dhamma, especially the suttas, is very important. And it also shows that the more times you listen, the more it sinks in. Like these nuns, when they heard it the second time, then they attain various levels of Aryahood. So listening to the Dhamma or studying the suttas again and again is very important. Each time we listen to the sutta or read the Nikayas, the suttas, then we understand the implications more and more. Just listening to the Dhamma is vipassana. Vipassana means contemplation. When you listen, you immediately contemplate. And it's equivalent to samasati. Samasati, we are supposed to be mindful of or contemplate 4 objects of sati. The body, feelings, the mind, and Dhamma. And I always say, out of these 4, the Dhamma is the most important because it leads to the various levels of Aryahood. When you understand the Dhamma, you will attain the wisdom that gives you the attainment of the various levels of Aryahood.